Christians, in Daniel 11, verse 37, the prophecy says, speaking of Herod the king, as I intend to prove, that neither shall he regard the God of his fathers, nor the desire of women, nor regard any God, for he shall magnify himself above all. I further want to prove that Herod is the one being referenced in Daniel chapter 11, verse 36. Now Herod the king, though supposedly of Idumean descent, in other words, he was an Edomite, he was virtually a Jew. For all of the remaining Idumeans, or the Edomites, who had come to Judea several centuries prior to this, they had been mixed in with the Jews. And when addressing the people, Herod habitually used the expression, our fathers, including himself in that. It was also widespread that Herod was regarded as a Jew. It was also widespread that the Herodians even considered Herod himself to be the Messiah. So in introducing the worship of Caesar, Herod conspicuously failed to regard the God of his fathers, as you see in this verse 37. Also in this connection, you have to remember that Esau, which was the origin of the Idumeans or the Edomites, was Jacob's twin brother. And so it is plain that the God of the fathers of the Edomites was the same God of the fathers of the Jews, one and the same. So the words in verse 37 here, when it says, nor the desire of the women, these are very significant words. And there can be no doubt that these words refer to Christ and that Daniel understood this. The women, quote unquote, must be understood to be the women of Israel and their desperate desire of every one of them, the desperate desire of every one of the women of Israel at this time was that she might be the mother of Christ. All these women, it was their desire to be the mother or to give birth to the Messiah. You see this also if you read the book of Haggai, chapter 2 and verse 7, where it says, and the desire of all nations shall come. Evidently then, it is Christ who is referred to as the desire of women. And if so, then we see these words being fulfilled in Herod's attempt to murder the infant Messiah. And keep in mind, he was accustomed to being considered the Messiah himself. And so this birth of this infant Messiah was a threat to his own popularity and perception of being the Messiah. So in Matthew chapter 2, verses 1 through 16, it is made perfectly clear that Herod's deliberate purpose was to put to death the promised Messiah of Israel. It was for the accomplishment of that purpose that he inquired from the chief priests and the scribes as to where Christ would be born. The slaughter of the babies of Bethlehem was an atrocious act without any rival in history that I know of. And it was also an event that had been foretold by Jeremiah in his words when he says, the voice was heard in Ramah, lamentation and bitter weeping, Rachel weeping for her children. Each one of those murdered infants was the desire of his own mother. And because of this, Herod the king is the one who fulfilled the prophecy of Daniel chapter 11, verse 36 through 39, and more in particular, verse 37. And he does so, he fulfills this prophecy in one of several ways that completely goes contrary to all dispensational eschatology. So when you see these dispensationalists try to interpret all these things to be yet future, I'm telling you now, these things have been fulfilled. Herod the king is he who was prophesied in Daniel chapter 11, verses 36 through 39. Be provoked and be persuaded.